Welcome to Beers with Chad.
Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here, another episode of Beers with Chad. Sorry I've been a little inconsistent lately with this. Last week I was up in Spokane, Washington, coaching at USAPL Raw Nationals. That's part of what I'm going to be recapping today, along with big dogs and some of these proposed IPF rule changes. So first up, I've got the Freem, I'm assuming the P is silent, Freem Hazy IPA brewery up there in Oregon. As always, delivered right to my door by the fine folks at Tavour. If you want to check out the Tavour app, download that on your phone, use the link in the video info or the episode info, and you can get that delivered right to your door. Beers from all over the country. Cheers. That's very good. That's one of the better beers I've had in quite a while. That's the Freem Hazy IPA, family brewing up there in Oregon. So first off, let's lead off with big dogs. Big dogs occurred over the weekend over there in Frankston, Australia. That is a meet that I competed at the first iteration of in 2016. This year, 2018, one of my athletes, Brandon Allen, was competing amongst an incredibly competitive field. Peter Petros, Odell Manuel, Brandon Allen, Eric Lillibridge, Sean Doyle. Unfortunately, my buddy Gwayne Johnston from Australia had to pull out for some personal reasons. But yeah, just a ton of incredibly strong guys over there competing in what is an incredibly well done meet. So congratulations to Emad, to Marcos for putting on yet another excellent competition, and the results did not disappoint. In fact, it was the heaviest top three that has ever happened in the sport of powerlifting. Peter Petros, the winner, walking away with 22,000 kangaroo dollars, with an 1,120 kilo total. Right behind him was Odell Manuel, one of the nicest guys you could ever hope to meet in sport. And Odell total 1115. And then behind them, my man, Brandon Allen, 1,102.5 kilograms for third place. Eric Lillibridge behind that, I believe at 1,080. So a very, very, very competitive meet. Brandon pulled for the win. You know, they weighed the guys in at Big Dogs this year, which is something that Marcos was very adamant about not doing before. And I'm not sure if they did that for tie-breaking purposes, as Brandon was the lighter athlete than Petros. So, you know, in my mind, he would have then won. He would have won the meet. But I believe that the way they would have done it would have been that they would have taken the first and second place prize money and split it between the two of them, as it is not technically a weight class meet. I believe the weights were just for record purposes on Powerlifting Watch, Open Powerlifting, all that stuff. And of course Brandon pulled for the win, because you don't go to a meet like that to pull for second place. You know, would he have had a better shot at 402.5 kilograms to pass to tie an injured Odell Manuel, who had to pass his third deadlift? Yeah, probably, but that's not what he flew, 15 hours across the world for. He wanted the win, so he went for the win with the 407.5 kilogram attempt, got it above the knees, gave it a pretty good run, but wasn't in the cards that day. However, he did become my first ever athlete I've coached to over 1,000-pound squat, 457.5 kilos, moved it very well, and unfortunately I couldn't be in two places at once. I couldn't be in Australia coaching Brandon while simultaneously in Washington coaching my ladies at USAPL Nationals, but thanks to the wonders of modern technology, it was like I was right there. I was actually mid-session coaching Kristen Dunsmore to the USAPL national title in the 72 kilo class, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second. But all the while that was going on, Brandon's wife Jenny and Marissa were texting me. Marissa was sending me the videos of his lifts off the live stream, and so I could see the lift. I could text Jenny right away with my input for the next attempt. So not quite as good as being there in person, but the best that we could do. So I was happy to be able to help him all along the way there, share with him some of my insights about traveling to compete, as I've competed in Australia at GPA Worlds, at Pro Raw 2 times, and at Big Dogs. It's a blast. They run great meets over there, so some little tips, hopefully help Brandon out, from compression socks and pants while he travels, to some hydration and diet stuff, to knowing which restaurants were good to eat at over there, what to do as soon as you get off the plane, to give himself the best opportunity to lift well. And he certainly did do that, with PRs in the squat, deadlift, and total. Peter Petros, the winner there, phenomenal. 1,120 kilograms, just a brute of a man. I mean, to see a guy who makes Brandon look, smallish in pictures is pretty remarkable. He's walking around, 165, 170 kilos, lean, and his bench press just sets him apart, but he's very well-rounded, all 3 lifts. Second place, Odell's an athlete. He was a professional rugby player in New Zealand and Australia for many years, and I've gotten to compete against him on 3, maybe 4 occasions. I think all 4 times I competed in Australia was against him. Only 1 in 3 against him, so I definitely think he's an excellent lifter, and he's another one who's just very well-rounded, no weak points, very clean lifts. I was not surprised to see Brandon defeat Eric Lillibridge. I don't think that Eric's training sets him up well for a competition. If you would go back and look at the entirety of his career, and this isn't to say that he's not incredibly strong and a very skilled technician of the power lifts, because he is definitely both of those, but if you were to look at the history of his career, I think that you would find that he almost always exceeds his meet results in training, and you would continue to find that his best results come at much more local, friendly type of competitions, UPA meets, where it was it might as well have been the Lillibridge Powerlifting Federation, where he struggled in these travel meets. I competed against him at GPA Worlds and Big Dogs 1. GPA Worlds, he beat me there, but honestly, they gave him a gift. His last deadlift was clearly coming out of his hands. His previous big travel meet before that, Capo, was one of the loosest judged meets in existence, to the point where fans were actually booing the judges, and then he followed that up at Big Dogs 1 with a bomb out, something that I had predicted to the meet promoters several months in advance. So, is what it is. I think powerlifting is a sport. It's about head-to-head competition, and I think the 3 best lifters there showed themselves to be just that. Back on this side of the world, we were at USAPL Nationals, the biggest powerlifting meet by participation ever. 1,250 lifters in Spokane, Washington, 4 platforms, 4 days, and I'll give you some of the good, I'll give you some of the recap of my lifters, and some things that I think could be improved about the event. So first off, the good. The lifting was fantastic. There was an incredibly high standard of competition, high standard of lifting, of course, as you'd expect in an IPF affiliate like the USAPL. Was there some judging decisions that I didn't agree with? Certainly. But it's when you're watching hundreds of lifters go, and it's all good lifting. It's not, you're not seeing stuff that's that shouldn't have gotten passed, or that was a gift kind of thing. Does that happen here and there? Certainly, but it's definitely not the norm. Some of the battles that we talked about on the Jug Life preview episodes certainly played out in the most dramatic of ways. The 63 kilo women, Jennifer Thompson, Jennifer Milliken, and Samantha Calhoun, was about as exciting as powerlifting can get. You know, we got to see Jennifer Milliken burst onto the 63 kilo scene with an American record in the squat, 185.5 kilos, a huge effort in the bench, 112.5 kilos. Jennifer Thompson continued to raise the standard of her bench pressing with 143 kilo effort, and then Samantha Calhoun come back with an American record deadlift of 225.5 kilograms, which gave her the win on body weight versus Jennifer Thompson in what was a back and forth. Jen Thompson pulled a lifetime PR, Sam was pulling huge, Jen Milliken had a chance to pull for what would have taken the lead at the moment, and it was a really exciting, really special thing to watch and be part of. In the 93 kilo men, it was a great battle between all the people that we talked about in the preview. Ashton Ruska, you know, Dave Ricks, defending two-time world champion Ellis McLean, and then the dark horse David Wilson came through with the victory there, pulling a big deadlift. Yeah, so that's fun to watch, to see a guy who is, you know, a great lifter certainly, and someone that we mentioned in our preview, but I would have picked him to be third or fourth out of that group, and he proved me wrong with the win. And then the 84 kilo women, we saw an American record squat by Amanda Lawrence, an American record bench by Danielle Lamello, an American record deadlift by Amanda Lawrence, multiple American record deadlifts, I believe, by Dana McNeil, Danielle Lamello, and Amanda Lawrence, and an American record total for the win by Danielle Lamello. So two very, very strong young ladies, both juniors, incredible to watch there. As far as my team, as far as my lifters went, I had just 4 lifters competing there at Nationals. Maddie Forberg, Joanne Ada, Marissa Inda, and Kristen Dunsmore, who hopefully you've all followed along with in our Week in Review series to better understand their training, and they all did excellent. Maddie and Joanne were first up. They were very conveniently for me in the same session on the same platform, so things didn't have to be too hectic. And Maddie went 9 for 9 with PRs in every lift, and that added up to a 40 kilo total PR for Madeline. And I don't know how you have a much better day than that. When she finished lifting, she was in first in the juniors. She was passed later by a lifter in the primetime session, but she's still got 2 more years in the juniors, so you know, 40 kilo total PR, 9 for 9 day, that's as good as it gets. Joanne was the Masters 1 champion. Joanne's 48 years old, turns 49 next year, so it's kind of the worst time to be a Masters 1 lifter because she is about as old as you can get to still be a Masters 1. So we're not sure if she'll end up getting on the world team because some people will age into Masters next year, but she is the Masters national champion for 2018. She made PR squat, PR bench, PR deadlift, PR total, Masters American records in all the lifts and the total on a 7 for 9 day. Marissa came into the meet a little bit injured. She tweaked her back on her last rep of hard deadlifts for the whole training cycle, so it was about 9 days out, 10 days out from competition. But she was extremely diligent about doing her breathing drills, going to see the chiropractor, getting soft tissue treatment to feel as good as she could, and performed very well for it. She was 3 for 3 in the squat with all white lights, where depth has been a constant frustration for her and myself. But she squatted 319, all whites, all 3 lifts, was very happy with that. Went on to bench an American record, 98 kilos on her 3rd attempt. I'll talk a bit more about that when I get into my complaints about the meet, and was fortunate enough to only have to pull 1 deadlift for the win. Tina Domenshad, who came in 2nd, very, very strong lifter, good balance between all 3 lifts, just like Marissa is. So she keeps pushing us, and we appreciate that. We also appreciate only having to take one deadlift. And finally, my last lifter of the weekend was Kristen Dunsmore, and Kristen became the 72 kilo champion on a 8 for 9 day. And her and Marissa, I think, both showcased a trait that is extremely important to being a successful powerlifter and a successful competitor in powerlifting, and that trait is resilience. Resilience and the ability to compartmentalize what you're doing. So they both showed resilience. Marissa, had this sort of up and down training cycle, missing some benches, trying to change technique in the squat, pretty good in the deadlift, and then last hard deadlift workout tweaks her back 10 days out. She'd been dealing with the sciatica stuff for a long time, and it's just like, can I just not feel good, and can things not just go right for me? But instead of sulking, instead of saying, I don't want to go, I don't want to lift, this isn't fair, whatever, 3 times a day, 90-90 breathing drills, bird dogs, all that type of stuff. Getting to the chiropractor to get soft tissue treatment as many times as possible, probably 6 or 7 times in that last 10 days leading into the competition. And knowing that nationals for her is what it is, and that's just a stepping stone to worlds. So she approached it that way, with the goal of going in only having to take 7 lifts, 8 at most, hopefully. And she executed that plan very well. I'm very proud of her. Kristen showed great resilience as well, going through her training cycle, not being 100% healthy, dealing with this glute piriformis issue from a local meet about 10 or 11 weeks ago. It kind of flared up on her about a week before that meet, exacerbated at the meet, and just something that she dealt with particularly during her squat, which is her strongest lift, throughout the training, even to the point where her last 2 squat workouts had to have significant modifications to them, and she wasn't able to squat more than 140 kilos for about 17 days going into the competition, but went in, felt good enough, to get 3 squats, to do 3 squats, stood up very, very quickly with 182.5 kilograms on her 3rd squat, 402, which would have tied her PR, and got it turned down 2-1. It was very frustrating. I took that to the jury, tried to get it overturned. No luck there. As a coach, I don't understand a 2-1 call from the jury on depth for the squat that comes from the front judge and a side judge. If it's from both side judges saying that it's high and it's 2 reds on the sides and 1 white from the front, okay, that makes sense to me. But how the front judge thinks that he can judge depth better than the side judge who thought it was to depth doesn't make any sense to me. That same front ref has given Marissa, reds from the front on many occasions as well. Maybe he's just very strict. Maybe it was because when he gave Marissa reds at 2015 Nationals in Scranton, I yelled several unpleasant things at him, and when he sees my face come out into the judge's box, he puts his finger on the red button already. I'm not sure what's the case there, but it was very frustrating, and it was something we knew that Kristen had to have a very good meet to beat an exceptionally strong young woman, Chloe Dublin. So when we not only squatted 7.5 kilos less than we had anticipated, we also squatted 5 kilos less than Chloe Dublin, putting us in a pretty big deficit, a 5 kilo deficit when we thought we were going to be up 2.5. And as we got, back into the warm-up room, Kristen was frustrated. She wanted to dwell on that squat, and I told her, I said, you got 5 minutes to complain about the squat, and that's the last we hear of it for the night, because we can't do anything to change it now. We can only move on and make 6 lifts from here on out to give yourself the best chance to win, because she was still in it. It takes so much for a lifter to be out of a meet, and I just think back to Marissa's World Championship 2017 when we were in Belarus, and she was like 13.5 kilos down coming out of the squat, and then just chipped away, made her lifts. Other people made, a couple mistakes here and there, and she was able to pull off that victory. And Kristen, did a good job compartmentalizing the squat, setting that aside. Yes, it frustrated her, but she knew that there was nothing she could do to change it. And moving on to have a great 3-for-3 performance in the benching a PR 110 kilos, and then to go into the deadlift knowing we're in striking distance, we're in a good place, took control of the meet with her second deadlift, and then got to pull a kind of conservative third of 210 kilos for the win on body weight. I think she would have been good, certainly for 215, maybe even 217 and a half. So, congrats to her. Also, congrats to Team Juggernaut athlete coached by Max Ada, Megan Scanlon, in the 57 kilo division, 57 kilo champ. So that was Team Juggernaut winning 3 of the women's open weight classes. That's more than a third of all of them. So 52 kilo champ, 57 kilo champ, 72 kilo champ, Masters 57 kilo champ, and Junior 57 kilo runner-up. So we have at least 3 women who will be on the open world team, or sorry, on the world team, 3 on the open team. So it's going to be a Jug Life party in Sweden next summer. Very, very excited about that. It's an honor. It's very exciting and fun to coach at these meets, especially these close competitions like we had with Kristen, because the USAPL, much more so than any other federation that I've coached or competed in, there's a lot of that jockeying for position, changing deadlift attempts, and it's very 2 plus or minus 2.5 kilos makes a big difference, especially on these smaller females lifts. So you have to be very strategic. It's not just a local meet where you're blowing everyone out of the water and you get to put in whatever you want, and if you make it, great, and if you don't, it doesn't matter. There's something real on the line. You have to win, to secure your spot on the world team, to guarantee that for yourself. And every kilo matters. Even those half-kilo chips, like Marissa's 98 kilo bench press rather than 97.5, that makes a huge difference as well when you get down to the end of the meet and force someone into a 2.5 kilo jump rather than maybe being able to win on body weight. So it's great to battle with these coaches year after year, as I've become, for about the last 4 years, more of a staple coaching in the USAPL. So to have people like Mike Tashir back there, Matt Gary, the whole crew from TSA, like Bryce Lewis, Hani Jazzarelli, Chris Aiden, Eric Bodhorn, all those guys, they do a great job, and it's fun to battle with them. I would encourage you as a listener, as a fan, as probably a consumer of powerlifting content and maybe coaching and book products like that. There was a lot of coaches who were absent from the back room there. A lot of coaches who are really popular on social media, but aren't actually there coaching anyone. They weren't over at Big Dogs coaching anyone either, because I think that of those competitors, Brandon is one of maybe 2 or 3 who actually even has a coach. So just something to keep in mind. It's much different to post about fancy sounding ideas on Instagram and to tell people over and over what a great coach you are, but to actually be there doing it, coaching the best athletes, coaching the best lifters, is a much, much different thing. I'm very proud of what I think is a completely unique distinction for myself, that I have coached or lifted at all of the biggest meets existing currently in powerlifting. Competed at Pro Raw, Big Dogs, coached and GPA Worlds, which was a massive meet in its time, coached at the US Open, coached, virtually coached at Big Dogs, coached in person, my athlete Alex Deacon at Pro Raw, IPF Worlds, the Arnold, USAPL Nationals, LA Fit Expo, had athletes excel at all of those levels, whether they're 52 kilo drug tested women or 160 kilo, 350 pound untested men, wraps, sleeves, whatever. Done it all. Very proud of that. And again, I urge you to think about the credentials of some of the people you follow to even ask yourself a simple question like, who are the good lifters that this person has coached? If they purport themselves to be a coach, that should be a very simple question to answer. Moving on from that, onto some of the things that I think could have been improved about this Nationals. First off, I want to say, very, very smoothly run event. To have that many lifters, for pretty much everything to be on time. Spotters, loaders, huge thank you to them, because that's just a shit job, and they did it very well. The venue was so-so. Spokane, a bit out of the way. It would have been easier to be in Seattle, but a pretty nice city. Negative was that the warm-up room was not attached to the competition hall. In fact, it was downstairs from that, which wasn't great, and you're kind of underground and get shitty cell phone service and all that sort of stuff. Watching a live stream that was on a bit of a delay, so not quite knowing where you were in the order and how to time things perfectly. And then the back room, the staging area for the lifting was very small, but such is life. I think things that can definitely be improved about that setup were Lifting Cast. The scoring tracking software that they used sucks. Go back to Next Lifter. Lifting Cast is shitty. Yes, it's a cool idea that you can see it on your phone, except when you get at these big events like Nationals, like the Arnold, there's really bad service. So you're trying to look it up on your phone and it won't refresh, and you can't see where you are. Plus, Lifting Cast was running behind, so much to the point that several women in our 57 kilo flight, where I was coaching Maddie and Joanne, actually missed even the opportunity to take their first bench press because Lifting Cast was not updating quickly enough. Even Joanne was even very close to that, where she took her last warm-up with about 4 lifters left in the previous flight, and she was, I believe, fourth or fifth in our flight, so let's call her 8 or 9 lifters out. Conservatively, that should be 6 minutes. She took that and started to walk up to the venue, and I was maybe 2 or 3 minutes behind her after Maddie took her last attempt. And when I got up there, Joanne was like running onto the platform, putting her wrist wraps on because she had just gotten up there. So it was, I'm assuming that those, what should have taken 6 or 7 minutes didn't take 2 minutes, and in fact, Lifting Cast was behind. It was just not great. There's errors in it. I don't like the color coding of it. It's a bit harder to read, just not as good of a system all around. The live stream this year was run by 9 for 9 Media, and they do an excellent job. But it wasn't a great setup, I don't think, in that they were doing split screen for a lot of the stuff. And part of my suspicion is that they were doing that so people watching it on their phone could watch 2 platforms at the same time. And for those sessions, it was fine for the lower sessions during the day. But for prime time, and this isn't their fault, this is the USAPL's doing, why in the prime time, the lifters that we were trying to showcase are on Thursday night, there's 6 weight classes. On Tuesday night, or on Friday night and Saturday night, there's 2 weight classes on each of those, and then there's 5 weight classes again on Sunday. Just spread it out. Put 4, 4, 4, and 5, or 4 and 3. It was kind of disrespectful almost to the 47, 52, and 57 women, and the 59, 66, and 74 guys, that the warm-up room is so much more crowded, and then because they're working on 2 platforms simultaneously, they're going back and forth on the live stream, showing only showing 1 lift at a time then, which I appreciate, but people's lifts are getting cut out. I didn't even, Marissa's opening bench press was not even on the live stream. You're having stuff where Garrett Blevins is setting up for his last deadlift to take the lead in the 105s, and the camera switches off to the other platform. So I think that was really a negative, but that's on the USAPL, not on 9 for 9. They did a really good job with it, I think. Just put, it should have been 47s, 52s, 59s, 66 on that first night. Then it should have been, the next 4 weight classes, 57, 63, 74, 83 the next night, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of equitable between all of the groups. Or what I think would actually be really preferable is to put all the primetime people on the weekend and just have a full day, full Saturday and full Sunday of the primetime sessions, and put all the non-primetime lifting on Thursday and Friday, because the people in the primetime are the ones who are going to win. It's easier for people to get there to watch on the weekends. It's easier to watch on the live stream on the weekends and showcase the best athletes in your sport. Beyond that, pretty excellent meet. I was very, very happy with my lifters' performance and the Team Juggernaut performance, and to have Brandon squatting 1,000 and doing what he did on the other side of the world simultaneously made it all the better. Several people asked me about some of these proposed IPF rule changes while we're out there in Spokane. Sort of the ones getting talked about the most I see are the arching rule for the bench press. They use the language as flat as possible in it, and also talked about the athlete not being able to put their feet up onto the bench. I believe that in the language of it, they tried to pass it off as not being able to put the feet on the bench as a way to protect the equipment. I've yet to see a bench press that's worn out where people are putting their feet up, but people, with their head on the bench, that area gets worn out much more quickly, but they enforce that your head must stay on the bench the whole time in that federation, so it seems a bit hypocritical there. So let's call it what it really is. It's probably a reaction to, social media commenters complaining about big arches in the bench press. That's understandable, but the language as flat as possible is totally unenforceable, completely vague, and would be way too subjective up to the judges, and just should not be allowed to be in. You can't, you can't judge what is as flat as possible. You can judge butt and shoulders and head in contact with the bench, and that's fine. If they want to not allow people to put their feet up on the bench in their setup, I think that that's a reasonable rule too. That might limit some people's ability to arch, but they'll find another way, and that'll be fine. I know my lifters will be undeterred by that language. The other one that I wanted to mention was the idea about including another weight class on the female side in the 95 or 96 kilo range. Terrible idea. And not that including another weight class for females is a terrible idea, but including a weight class in that range is a terrible idea. They're doing that because the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, wants to see a balance between men's and women's weight classes as now exists in weightlifting. That's totally fine. But powerlifting is never going to get in the Olympics. IPF, stop pretending that it is. If you're serious, if IPF is serious about getting powerlifting into the Olympics, end equipped lifting now. Equipped lifting will never get into the Olympics, and having two distinct divisions like that will preclude powerlifting from ever getting into the Olympics, because it's watering down the competitive nature of it, and it's just fucking weird. What other sport can you think of that has two parallel competitions like that? Maybe you could think indoor volleyball and beach volleyball or something, but both of those are in the Olympics already. Both types of powerlifting aren't getting in. By the general viewer, they'd probably see weightlifting and powerlifting as parallel already. So let alone having two types of powerlifting is nonsense. So don't do it for that reason. Don't do it for the Olympic, this Olympic pipe dream that the IPF has. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for a number of reasons. One, there's not enough money in powerlifting to make the necessary bribes to the IOC, because that's how that shit happens. That's how the IOC operates, is with bribes. Just like FIFA and by a lot of reports, the IPF as well, they don't have enough money to make those necessary bribes. So it's not going to happen for that reason. Also, it's just not that interesting to people. Sports with way, way more money and way bigger followings like golf are much more likely to get in than powerlifting. So that is what it is. So they shouldn't add the weight class for that reason, but they should add another weight class. It just shouldn't be 95 or 96 kilos. When weightlifting added the 90 kilo class, and then shortly after that all the classes were reset, I saw it coming there too, as did everyone else. They took a less competitive range of weights and made it and diluted the competition even further by adding that other weight class. It would be even worse in powerlifting. The IPF weight classes right now: 47, 52, 57, 63, 72, 84, 84 plus. The concentration of the best lifters, the highest number of very, very excellent lifters, is in that 57 to 72 range. Really, even the 52 kilo class back at 2017 Worlds had 5 women in it with over 500 Wilks. So if they were to add another weight class, which I think they should, the weight classes should probably go 57, 63, maybe 69 or 70, like 78, 79, 80, somewhere in that range, 90 or 95, and 95 plus. So it wouldn't just be adding that 95 or 96 kilo class. They might get to about that number, though I think that's a little bit high, but they need to add the class in the high 60s, because the spread, they're going 5 kilos from 47 to 52, 5 kilos from 52 to 57, 6 kilos from 57 to 63, and then 9 kilos up to 72, and then 12 kilos. That gap is too big. There's just a lot of lifters who are either a bit too tall for the 63s or a bit, that can't fill out the 72s the way they should. And this isn't just my opinion. Let's go to the numbers and look at results. So by Wilks, in the 63 kilo class, what I believe is the most competitive weight class, 10th place in the 56s, or sorry, in the 63s, was a 456 Wilks. You have to go all the way down to 30. Well, with differences in body weight, there's a couple people just dipping under it, but even 40th, 41st, 44th place in the 63s is a 403 Wilks. There's a couple high 390s Wilks above that, so that person in 44th must just have been particularly light, but down to 44th place with lifters still over a 400 Wilks, with their 10th place lifter being a 456. Contrast that to the 84 kilo class. 84 kilo class, which had incredible lifting at the top end of it. And certainly the most competitive it's been. A 537 Wilks by Mello, a 529 Wilks by Amanda Lawrence, and even a 496 Wilks for the third place finisher. But if we look at their 10th place, it's 420. They only go to 13th place with over a 400 Wilks. So, adding in, and then let's take a look at the 72s. So the 72s right in between that, 453 Wilks is 10th place at 72. And you can go down to 22nd, even 27th place is a 403. Again, there's a couple lighter or heavier lifters above that with high 390s, but we can go to 44th place in the 63s with 400 plus. We can go to 27th place in the 72s with 400 plus. But in the 84s, it's only 11 or 12th, 13th place and above. There's just not the competitive depth there. And the U.S. Danielle Mills is a defending world champion in the 84s. The U.S. has the best 84 kilo lifters, so I think it's an excellent representation of the potential depth of the class, and it's just not there. So you're going to take 13 or 14 very, very higher end lifters and now split them into 2 classes and maybe have 9 400 plus Wilks in one and 5 in another. Where if you were to take that 63, change the gap from 63 and then go up to 69 or 70 and then something in the higher 70s, like a 76, 77, 78. Now you're taking 65 lifters with 65, almost 70 lifters with over a 400 Wilks and spreading them over 3 classes and instead of taking a dozen lifters with over 400 Wilks and spreading them over 2. So those are my 2 main gripes with these proposed IPF rule changes, but they never listen to me, even though I pretty much have the best ideas when it comes to all these things, but maybe one day they'll learn. So it was a great weekend up in Spokane, USAPL Raw Nationals, Chadley's Angels, killing it. Great performances to all the lifters I coached. And then as Marissa so aptly called him, Chadley's Devil across the other side of the Pacific Ocean, Brandon Allen lifted fantastically at Big Dogs. So congrats to all of the lifters, all of the lifters who competed at any of these meets, at any meet over the weekend, because it takes some balls to compete and not just post lifts on Instagram and pretend like you compete. So that's it for this week's Beers with Chad. Again, check out Tavour if you want to get great beers delivered right to your door, like this Freem Hazy IPA. Very, very tasty beer. So that's it. See you next week. Cheers.